Good morning, everyone. I think it's still morning for everybody yet. My name is Ann Thesson, and I'm the chair of this session titled, a new ESIP cluster to support linking geo and patient data. So what are we going to do today? Well, unfortunately, I am all by my lonesome. NIH employees and contractors have been told that they are not allowed to speak publicly about health until February 1st. So don't have my co-chair, who was supposed to be Charles Schmidt, and I will not have either of my speakers, although I can just sort of give you the take-home point from both of their talks. So that means that we'll have extra time for the ideation and brainstorm that we're going to have, that we were always going to have. So I'll just sort of set this up the same way I was going to, and I'm going to ask for your patience and forgiveness. I'm going to be heavily relying on the fellows to help me take notes and help me keep an eye on the chat. So that we can figure this out. And I'm really bad at writing and talking at the same time. So if I have to take any notes, it's going to look like I'm doing something else, but I'm not. I'm paying attention. Okay, so we want to do this because more than 12 million people around the world die every year because they live or work in unhealthy environments. So environments are incredibly important. Some more information: zip code can be a stronger indicator of heart disease than your genetic code. And climate change has exacerbated over 200 infectious diseases. So this is why we're very interested in combining geolocated data with patient data. But right now, there are no clear standards or workflows for linking geospatial data with patient data. And disciplinary divides prevent advancement of knowledge in this critical area. So this is one reason that myself and many of my colleagues at NIH are very interested in setting up these spaces within these different standards bodies in order to reach across these disciplinary divides. And ESIP is only one of those places where we're trying to have these conversations. So just to go over some of the known issues or issues that I've come up against in my own projects trying to do this, we need to keep track of geolocation metadata. Like there are several geolocators out there where you can give a patient address and get back a latitude and longitude based on that address. There's lots of metadata about the quality of that geolocation that we need to keep track of, like which geolocator did you use? How did there are just like a million different ways to write addresses, believe it or not, and it gets out of control pretty quick. There's differences in scale, both spatial and temporal. When you're talking about environmental factors being applied to individuals or being applied to regions, and you have to think about, well, what exactly what's my question and what's appropriate? Because you can quickly get into trouble with bias and fallacies when you try to combine data that are not at the proper scale. And then we also have to deal with issues of patient privacy. This is very, very important because once you start geolocating a patient, it becomes much easier to find out who they are. And we have to figure out how we can do this so that we can account for these environmental conditions when we're looking at public health, but still not violate anybody's privacy. And of course, from the earth science side, there's a lack of clarity around what GeoData products would be useful for public health. Do we take PM 2.5 average daily, monthly? Over what spatial unit are we talking about here? And there's just a million different ways to do things and not really any sort of guidance on what would be best. And of course, there's a lack of clarity around, from the health side, there's a lack of clarity around what geodata are even available, what can we ask for? So throughout this session, we're going to use the Miro board to collect people's questions and comments. The bit.ly link is there. You can click on it or you can type it into a browser. I think Megan is also going to put it into the chat. So each sort of talk/question has its own section. So go in order. There's arrows and there's step 1, step 2. You can verbalize your question if you want to. We have a small enough group that we can do that. You can type your question in the chat. I will do my best to try to keep up with everything, or you can just add it directly to the Miro board and we can take the time to discuss it since the full 30 minutes of my session got blown up. So go ahead and in order to do a question or a comment, just grab one of the virtual stickies that have been created in the left and drag it to the appropriate section. Add your name if you want. If you're familiar with Miro, you can add, you can create your own sticky, or you can even add a little like emoji to the sticky to say, you know, +1 or thumbs up, I agree with this one, if you don't want to duplicate stickies. And so basic instructions, you right click to grab the board and move it around, and you left click on the sticky in order to move the sticky, and the zoom is the scroll thing on your scroll wheel on your mouse. So if you want to go there right now, there's a place on the Miro board for what I'm saying right now. And there are places in the Miro board for the speakers that I had lined up that are no longer there, and we're just going to skip over those. So feel free to add questions or comments either to the chat. You can raise your hand, or you can put things on the Miro board. Although I'm not sure that my introduction will inspire that many questions or comments. Okay, so there are several opportunities on the health side to try to bring people together to have these conversations. This is the part that my NIH co-chair was supposed to go over, and he is not here, but I can still go list some of these. There's a whole NIH Climate Change and Health Initiative. Who knows if that will exist after February 1st. But there's groups called the Cafe and Chords. We are having another workshop in the context of Cafe. It's a virtual workshop that you can register for if you have an interest. It's going to be along the same lines, but the audience will be more from the medical side. There's also this entire field called exposomics, which is sort of like genomics or phenomics. This is the exposure part of it. There's an NIEH coordination center called Nexus, and there's also the International Human Exposome Network, which is more of a global or European organization. And then there are groups working on standards to put exposure information in like individual people's health records. So here we're talking more like electronic health records, and those are the Odyssey GIS working group that's trying to put standards into the OMOP common data model. And there's also a climate and health working group as part of AMIA. AMIA stands for Association of Medical Informatics or something along those lines. I don't remember. Okay, so here are two speakers that we were going to have. Laura Clark was going to speak about challenges linking geospatial and health data, giving examples from the CORDS program. And then we were going to have Nathaniel McNell speak on using geospatial data to uncover gene-environment interactions in the case of swine feeding operations and immune-mediated diseases in the personalized environment and genes study. So Nathaniel works on the effect of CAFOs, I believe, in North Carolina. And the personalized environment and genes study is actually really interesting. It's you basically have a cohort of people, you do their gene sequence, and you give them a series of surveys where they write down, you know, this is my occupation, this is my diet, this, so that they've captured the phenotypes, the exposures, and the genes all in one study. So it's kind of cool. All right, so the takeaways from Laura's talk is basically this. There are many technical challenges in linking geospatial data with individual level health outcomes data for studying the social and environmental determinants of health. Continued development of resources such as data standards, data catalogs, software for computing geospatial exposure metrics, and training materials at the intersection of Earth environmental science, biomedical health science, and data science can help address these challenges. So that's pretty much what ESIP is all about. Nathaniel's McNell's takeaways. The main take-home message was that geospatial data can be used in combination with genetic data to help identify mechanistic pathways and insights for improving the treatment and prevention of complex diseases like immune-mediated diseases. So that was basically what they were going to say. Okay, and so with that, I'm going to stop sharing because this is the end of this portion of the session. Let me go look at the Miro board and see if there's anything there that, oh. Okay, I thought the, well, I guess it doesn't matter because there's not that many of us, but we may need to turn off the cursor visibility so we don't get confused and overwhelmed. Okay, I only have a one comment. Sounds like a worthwhile cluster to start, +1. Okay, great. I'm glad. So let's go ahead and go to the mural board. And I'll start the next group of slides. So this was what we were going to look at after the presentations. So this is the ideation and brainstorming phase. You know, since we have time now, let's maybe, and we have a tractable number of people, let's go through and do some introductions. I would really love to hear who is here and a little bit about you. And let's say, like, why are you here? What is your interest in being here? So I'm going to start. I guess we have 2 community fellows. Let's just go ahead and start with Bolivar.
Yes, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm one of the new community fellows mainly for the data stewardship committee. I have a background in ecology and evolutionary biology, studying plant microbe interactions, and I'm just kind of widely interested in ecological and evolutionary topics. And this one kind of, and the reason I'm here is because this has to do a little bit with health. So kind of that line of thinking about pathogens and thinking about um, microorganisms. That's what I'm thinking about. I just wanted to be here and learn a little bit more about the topic and how I can potentially contribute. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So while I'm thinking about it, Megan, can you put a link in the chat to the agenda? It would really help me a lot if everyone would put their name and their whatever email you would like to use, like me to use to follow up with you in the agenda under the attendee section. Okay, so next we have Nullifier.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nelfar, Community Fellow for Marine Data Clusters, currently doing an MS Geography at the University of Arkansas. Really interested in the data interoperability of health data, science data, how they can come together and really paint a more comprehensive picture together. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Next, I see Colleen Rosales.
Thanks, and I'm Colleen Rosales. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Director at OpenAQ. OpenAQ is a nonprofit that aggregates and harmonizes air quality data all over the world and makes it publicly available for anyone for any purpose that they have. And my interest in this cluster is I'm also part of the partnerships committee, and we review all of the incoming partnership applications. And I just saw a partnership application for that is related to GeoHealth, and then also we have a lot of not a lot, but some partners that work on GeoHealth, and so I want to understand more how we can better serve our potential collaborators and partners that work on GeoHealth, and how we can better serve them as we serve them air quality data. How can we make it better for them?
Exactly, yeah. Okay, great. Next, I see Jay Greenfield.
Hi. Yeah, I work actually with Anne on the Odyssey GIS extension, which brings social determinants of health and environmental data into first the OMOP CDM and then downstream into the analysis workbenches that are part of Odyssey. And also more recently, I've been working with Charles and Laura on a pathway or workflow that goes from some of the systems that they've developed into OMOP and Odyssey.
Great, thanks, Jay. Next, I see Peter McCary. I don't know if Peter can come off of mute or if
There it is.
How much he doesn't know it. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Okay. Thanks. I'm Peter McCary. I work on the EED program, which is the contract to manage NASA's Earth Sciences archives and make the data available. And I guess I'm kind of a data engineer, data scientist type of person. So I'm just always interested in how different sources of data can be used usefully. So that's me. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Peter. Next, I see Austin Wisdom.
Hello, I'm Austin. I also work on the ED3 program. I'm not a researcher. I work on the platform team. We have a lot of data and tools that researchers use, though. So just broadly interested in how the community is using that Earth science data, and it seemed like an interesting talk with the health impacts and linking the geospatial data to that. So.
Great, thank you. Next, I see Ben Galuski.
Hi there, Ben Galuski. I'm a senior research software engineer at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications at the University of Illinois. And I'm working on a project with the Illinois Department of Public Health, and we're working in conjunction with the Atmospheric Sciences Department to create what we're calling an analysis facility that brings together climate impact data in a way that researchers across campus can say, okay, I don't know anything about this data, but the climate groups say this is the data you should use, and then be combining that with public health information. but also just hearing the introductions here, I'm thinking, there's some other people on campus I should probably be talking to. So thanks for bringing this together.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Next, I see Rama.
Hi, I'm Rama. I go by Rama. That's half my last name. Rama Priyan is the full last name. I work for the NASA's Earth Science Data and Information System project as a contractor now, working for a company called Science Systems and Applications Incorporated. And the SDIS project, as a couple of other guys have said, is the project that manages all of Earth science data from NASA. And I've been involved with ESIP for a long time. And in fact, I used to chair, I'm still involved as in the leadership team, I suppose, in the information quality cluster. And very interested in how people put data together and how the information quality is maintained. And I was pleased to see that you had quality in your list of things as challenges along with privacy and so on. So I'm just interested in the topic of health and geosciences, but I'm not sure I'll be contributing much to the cluster, but I do believe that this is a good cluster to start.
Great, thank you. Next, I see Chan Huang.
Hi, I'm Qian Huang. I am a faculty at East Tennessee State University College of Public Health, Center for Rural Health and Research. So I do everything about health, and I've been in ESIP for a couple of years. I am so glad I see more and more health people in health. So done some ESIP project, like I assessed the wildfire impact and air quality on COVID. And I want to do more the environmental impact on health outcomes like respiratory disease and all those, trajectory. And I'm so glad this is finally happening. So I will contribute as much as I can and as much as you need.
Great, thank you. And I believe last but not least, oh no, we have a few more people who joined. Okay, Tao Hu, I see next.
So hello everyone. I'm sorry my camera has a problem. I work with Chen, and we are both like a founding recipient from the ESIP. And so I'm a faculty at Oklahoma State University. I'm a GIS person. Actually, so most of the time I deal using GIS techniques to address public health problems. So I work with GeoData as well as health data most of the time. And last year, my team built a One Health data hub for Oklahoma. And so we see a lot of like challenges that you mentioned today. So I think it would be very helpful to know more about the other new like challenges and opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I see Ethan Davis.
Hi, yeah, I'm Ethan Davis. I'm at Unidata in Boulder, part of UCAR, NCAR, so atmospheric research. We focus on weather and some climate and data systems, really. So I'm just really here to listen and curious about the crossover between health and GeoData. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Next, I see Jensen Sun.
Jensen is unmuted but not audible. Maybe we can come back to Jensen.
Yes, I see someone named Ingrid who just jumped around.
I think Ingrid might have stepped out.
Still with us? Okay, no. Okay, so that's everyone except Jensen. Jensen, maybe you can type Jensen, maybe you can just type your introduction into the chat. Okay, so that's everyone who's here now. Again, for any late arrivals, please add your name and your the email that you'd like me to use to follow up with you on this topic into the agenda as an attendee. I would very much appreciate it. Now let's go into the next half of the session. Unfortunately, for those of you who joined late, the presenters that I had scheduled are not allowed to speak publicly about health until February 1st. So we're just going to skip over that and go into the ideation and brainstorming phase of this talk. So that's, yep, I just went over that. So we're going to do this in the Miro board. There's the link again for those of you who did not catch it the first time, and I'm sure Megan can put it in the chat again. Okay, so let's go to the Miro board. And I can share the Miro board if people...
It looks like we have 12 people in there, so there might be 2 or 3 that are not, but most folks are.
Okay, well, what do you think, Megan? Should I go? Is it best practice for me to share it as
I think
well?
it's okay to share it while you're talking about it. Maybe don't leave it up the whole time, but for a brief period.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and share for those of you that aren't there or can't get there. Again, if you've got things to say and can't get to the Miro board, it's okay to raise your hand and it's okay to type things into the chat. So the first question here is, what do you hope to get out of participating in this cluster? What are some of your goals and objectives? So I'll give people a few minutes to kind of reflect, some quiet minutes to reflect about what you might want to put in here. And then we can kind of talk through some of it. I see people are going ahead, which is fine too. Okay, it kind of looks like people are done with their stickies here. And it kind of looks to me like we've got a lot of people here who are interested to know more, understanding data needs and priorities, looking for collaborators, building a One Health workflow, communicating across stovepipes. So people are here to find new collaboration opportunities, learn more about what the health community needs from the earth science and environmental communities. We have a mention here of the data restrictions, data access restrictions. So this, learn more about GeoHealth and how environmental factors or location can be identified as being linked to disease. So one of our earlier ESIP sessions that was recorded that you can go back and see, one of the speakers worked with valley fever specifically and had specific measurements linking like drought conditions to outbreaks of valley fever. I believe it was in Colorado. So if you want to go back and look at that YouTube video from a previous ESIP session, that would be one example of an environmental factor identified as being linked to a specific disease. Does anyone who put a sticky here want to talk at all about their sticky or want to maybe elaborate more with the group on what they wrote? Or does anyone have a question about someone else's sticky? Let me look in the chat. Yes, I thought I heard someone come off mute, or was that wishful thinking?
So, hi. So this is Tao. I do have a question. So at the beginning, you mentioned the second speaker uh about how to like incorporate the geospatial data and genetic data, right? So yeah, I think this is quite interesting. I would like to know more about if it's possible to have some kind of examples or kind of potential opportunities.
Okay, so one thing I can do, I don't know if he's allowed to talk to you about this before February 1st, but I can definitely mark down your interest if we can gather, well, let me, I'll write that in my notebook here. And Tao, just make sure you put your contact information in the agenda.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. I can definitely make that introduction, even if you can't really have any conversations until after February 1st.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, anything else on this? Have we wrung this question out?
And can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
To what extent are there other venues for folks in the geohealth arena to engage with folks with this kind of earth science expertise? How much is this about creating a venue where folks know to come if they'd like to kind of cross those boundaries versus working on specific tasks together? And you don't have to answer that. That's, I think, what we're exploring, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious, your thoughts.
So I've already gotten from the health side some very specific questions and needs. And those are listed in the draft cluster proposal that is linked. There are links to that in the slides, I believe, and we'll look at that before the end of the session.
Mm-hmm.
So I am anticipating that this cluster will have participation from outside of ESIP, and we already have many people from the Odyssey community and from Cafe and Chords who are interested in participating. Many of them were like, I don't know if I can justify the expense of attending the official meeting, but they definitely want to regularly attend like the meeting of the cluster.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be a space not just for ESIP people, but for both people from across the disciplinary divide to come together. It's just that this is an ESIP session, right? We're also going to have a cafe session. We're looking to put together a session at the International Society of Environmental Epidemiologists meeting that's later this year. So we can get some input from environmental epidemiologists. So we're doing this. So the monthly meetings of this proposed cluster would be the place that everybody would come to. And then we have various workshops at very discipline specific meetings where we can gather information from people who are maybe less interested in the cross-domain aspects and the standards development aspects of this activity.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we move to the next bubble? There are things happening in the chat. Talking about a NASA meeting. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, let's move to the next bubble. So which of the tasks, or are there any specific tasks, would you personally be willing to contribute? And of course, please include your name on your sticky note. So I understand that these tasks, given some of them are rather general. Can we think about some specific tasks that would further these goals and that you would be willing to contribute to? And I know this is maybe a little esoteric at this point. Maybe think about, let me try to come up with some prompts here to get people's brain cells firing. If this cluster is wildly successful for you personally, what sort of specific activities or specific deliverables would you want to see? And then which of those deliverables would you be interested in directly participating in? I'll give an example. One of the goals that has come from a project that I'm working on, the Center for Linkage and Acquisition of Data, CLAD, which is part of the NIH's All of Us program, is trying to create a pipeline for geolocating patient addresses, cobbling together their address history, and then using that to add environmental variables to patient records. But before we can do any of that, we have to do a thorough assessment of the geolocators and geolocation standards. And part of that, again, is trying to look at bias in the accuracy of different geolocators in different parts of the United States. And one thing we've come across is that there's not a lot of like ground truth data that we can use to say, is this actually giving us the right latitude and longitude? And if not, how far off is it? Especially for rural and tribal areas, there's no like reference data set so that we can test a geocoder against. So the creation of this sort of reference data set that can give an estimate of, for a individual geolocator, like how well does it perform in urban environments? How well does it perform in rural environments? Does it work in the territories? Does it work in tribal areas? The creation of that data set would be one of the goals of this cluster, or I would hope that it would be. And that's something that I would be directly participating in, since we have to do it for one of my projects. So that's sort of like an example of what you might put here. And so now I will be quiet and let people think and put things in the bubble.
And I'm just going to remind folks that your contributions here don't all have to be technical. Sharing connections to people and stories and, existing things. I think that's important. Definitely seems like there's a need to listen and learn as well.
Yeah, I just have one thought on this. It seems to me that with the linkage to environmental data, you don't just need spatial representation. You need a temporal duration as well. So are you thinking of including that in the project?
Yes.
Okay.
That's very much a part of it. So not only do you have uncertainty around the actual geolocation, you also have uncertainty around like how long did this person live in this place?
Exactly. People move.
And we have to try to reconstruct their address history. Okay, it looks like the sticky activity has died down. And feel free, you know, if you want to go back and add something, feel free to do that. I'm planning to have this Miro board available for, I don't know, I hear ESIP is going to have them available and editable for the next year. And I'm planning to bring this up in other, to hand this out in other contexts so that we can continue to get these sorts of thoughts and ideas from a wide variety of people. So if you wake up at 3 a.m. tomorrow and say, I have an idea, the board will still be here and you're welcome to add another sticky to it. Okay, so let's move on to the next bubble. Who else should we be collaborating with, people or organizations? So I did mention a few NIH-related organizations that are already on our radar. From your perspective, who else should we be talking to for this cluster? And again, I'll shut my mouth and let people do their thing here.
Yeah, this is Peter again. So I know that EPA has information on toxic events, and then NOAA has a severe weather database. So, you know, timelines like, you know, the location and time duration of, say, the drought you were referring to, information like that might be useful. Not sure, but those are some sources that I know about.
Great, thank you. Okay, it looks like the activity is somewhat died down. I'm seeing NASA, EPA, NOAA, the World Health Organization, CDC. I'm not sure what some of these acronyms are, but that's what Google is for.
And I wonder if, well, I was thinking we could do this later, but I wonder if now, if folks are putting sticky notes here, if you could indicate, if you, to the extent you know the answer to this now, like, who are folks we should be kind of trying to get in on this sort of what should the cluster do, which is inviting to the conversation now versus like connections we just want to make sure that we establish at some point as our goals kind of get clearer. And I know that's a very vague, you might not really be able to answer that, but I think there are categories of collaborators, I guess.
Right, right. So I guess if there are individual people that like who at the EPA do I need to write a targeted invitation to participate in this? If there are any people like that, go ahead and write their name in here if you know of anyone. So maybe if you wrote something in here, kind of qualify it. Do I need to make a point to pull these people in early, or can they just be just, you know, my reach out maybe be a little less aggressive?
Right. Now versus eventually.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you for adding those names. It looks like we can move to the next bubble.
Hey, this
But
is
yeah.
Ram. This is Ram. I have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Okay.
I was wondering if you have any connections with the wildfire cluster and the other disasters cluster people in the ESIP?
So I've added them, I've listed them on things like session proposals and the cluster proposal as a related cluster that would be interested in what we're doing, but I don't have like a person.
Dave Jones from the wildfire cluster, well, wildfire and disasters in general. And Karen Moy is very interested in air quality. She's a retired NASA person. and she is still active, quite active in ESIP.
Yeah, Karen would be a great connection. Colleen is also a good connection to the air quality cluster.
What's Karen's last name?
Moe, M-O-E.
And Karen is with the disaster.
Well, I don't know what her chairing status is. She and Dave Jones were co-chairs of the disaster response cluster, I think is what it was called.
She's not chairing anymore, but she has been involved in both the disasters and the air quality clusters of recently. So she is a good connection.
Yeah, she's very active in her retired life, managing a bunch of air quality information collection in the area where she lives in Maryland.
And then Colleen, which Colleen is this?
She's here, Colleen
Oh,
Rosales.
Colleen Rosales.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can help
that's
make
terrible.
connections to any folks, any names that come up in ESIP later.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next bubble. What other opportunities are there to talk about what we are doing with an interested audience? So from your perspective, as I said before, there's the cafe workshop, there's the International Society of Environmental Epidemiologists. So from the earth science and environmental science side, are there meetings that you know about that are primarily within the earth science universe where earth scientists are interested in learning more about the health impacts, or that would be interested in collaborating in this way, are participating in our clusters? Like, for example, is there a group in AGU that's interested in public health effects of climate change or something of that nature? Anything that you know about?
Well, if you're talking about interested audience and cluster interactions, I think even the clusters that we mentioned within ESIP would be of interest. You can have collaborative presentations. Each group can present to the other in the cluster meetings. And unfortunately, the information quality cluster is currently in a hiatus status, and we would ideally like to have somebody take a lead and set directions for it for the future. But I can see a connection between that cluster's interests and this cluster as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there are connections to the kind of application areas that have been mentioned, the clusters in ESIP and disasters and air quality, et cetera. But I also think that there are connections to some of the more technical clusters that might have some ideas for you. So I wouldn't leave out things like information technology and interoperability, if possible.
Yeah, semantics probably would be of interest.
What was the one you mentioned, Megan?
You can just write down IT&I, information technology and interoperability. I could see this making a nice short webinar that 50 people come to learn about some of these challenges. That can't be a bad thing.
Okay. So, I mean, it looks like there probably aren't pre-existing groups within other geoscience organizations that would be amenable to this. Are there, like AGU, for example, there's not already a group in AGU looking at this. Does anyone think that AGU would be a good place to start something, or to have to start that interest, or start that AGU has a geo health section?
I think so. Let me confirm that. But I-
Shelley Stahl would be a good point of contact.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Ethan, for sharing that.
Okay, great. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but
Yeah, I read that. It seems like very directly connected to this cluster's interest.
okay, cool. Okay. Very good ideas. Okay, let's go down to the next bubble. Would you consider being a chair or co-chair in the future? If yes, please add your name to a sticky note. And this is not committing anyone to anything at this point. I will be chairing this for the
And I
next
just
several
want
years.
to add really quickly that being a co-chair commits you to nothing specific, just as writing your name here doesn't commit you to anything. I think a good definition of a co-chair in ESIP is someone who's kind of willing to work with the chair and willing to do what's necessary to move things forward, which, you know, may not be hard things. They might be small logistical things that kind of keep us moving forward, but you don't have to be a super expert, I would say. I mean, and let Anne clarify what she's looking for here, but I think a lot of people could fit the bill, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, my co-chair for this session was going to be here to, you know, he was going to speak and he was also going to help me just run the show and keep track of everything. It's also somebody I can run abstracts and session proposals by. So yeah. Okay, so in order to not make this super uncomfortable, I'm going to move on to the next bubble. And if someone wants to like clandestinely add their name there while I'm not looking, I'll be fine with it. Oh, and people are already voting. All right. So do you think GeoData for Health is a good title for this cluster? You can vote yes or no by dragging one of these dots that is over here on the right, either to the yes or the no column. You don't have to vote at all if you don't want to. I'll take, so there's 15 people here. 4 people have already voted. That's good. And if you do not like it, I would love it if you would suggest a new title. I came up with this title. I'm not very good at coming up with titles, so I would like to get some input here. So I'll just let people think about it for a few minutes. Think about, you know, is this title confusing? Does it represent what we want to do? What we've been discussing this whole time?
I'll add that I think it's a more specific than many other collaboration area titles or names. So I like it.
Wonderful. You can vote too, Megan.
Okay. I mean, I think most people will have more than the title to decide if they want to engage, but I do feel like it. I do like it.
All right, it looks like the voting activity has died down. You're perfectly welcome to not vote at all. Or you can vote later as you see fit. Okay, so here's the last bubble. We've got about 20 minutes left in the session. What are we missing? What are we not thinking about? Is there anything here Unfortunately, there's a lot missing because we anyway, yeah, so what are we missing in this conversation? Please feel free to jot it down on the sticky note and put it there, and I will be quiet while people think.
I think you need some kind of a vision and goal statement for the cluster.
Okay, it kind of looks like that activity has died down a little bit. I do want to emphasize that this Miro board will remain up and editable as far as I know. If it's not editable, let me know. Feel free to add stickies. Feel free to comment on other people's stickies or add emojis to other people's stickies. Yeah, please make sure that you have added yourself as an attendee to the agenda and added your whatever email you would like me to use to follow up on this. I'm going to switch over from sharing the Miro board to take us back to the slides to close out the session. So what's going to happen next? I'm going to take this Miro board, share it with other people, and use this to collect information to fill out the cluster proposal. So I've added a link to the draft cluster proposal here in the slides. I'm pretty sure, I don't know, Megan, if you can want to add a link to that. Megan has also created for us a mailing list, an ESIP mailing list that you can join if you're interested in staying on top of things here. So I'll use this Miro board, this information and the conversation we've had today to update this cluster proposal and start filling out the cluster plan template, which is something that you can access via the ESIP website. And so we'll continue to take input via the Miro board. There's the bit.ly link that should be fairly easy to write down real fast if you lose access to something. So that's the next step for me is to use the Miro board to start filling it, update the cluster proposal, get the cluster formally accepted and started, and start filling out the cluster plan template. So, yep, that's what I just said. And then we have 3 future workshops coming up. Like I said, cafes in March, that's entirely virtual. And I think, don't quote me on this, I think that you can register for a pre-conference workshop without paying for the fee. I'm not 100% on that. We're preparing or would like to prepare a workshop for the International Society of Environmental Epidemiology, which is having its conference in collaboration with the International Society of Exposure Science in August in Atlanta. I believe that's going to be in person only, but I'm not sure. And then we're planning a submission for the AMIA conference in November. And that's going to be a very medical focused conference. So that's that. So please add your name to the cluster proposal as an initial participant, or add your name to the agenda, or join the mailing list. I will vacuum up people from both of these places in order to stay in touch with everybody. So thank you so much for attending, for bearing with me while I struggle through having half of my session destroyed. And Great. I'm very excited. I think this will be a really interesting cluster. And just thank you for all your support. Thank you to the fellows, Bolivar and Nelifar, and thank you to Megan for helping with all of the technical aspects of actually doing this. We do technically have about 10 minutes left. If there is anything anyone would like to bring up or discuss, or any questions, comments, testimonials, anything, feel free to go ahead and speak up.
I just want to add my thanks also, Anne, for navigating these challenges. It sounds like you have a very well-developed plan along with your initial collaborators, and there are lots of great ideas today. So thanks, folks, for showing up. And please join us at the closing plenary. It's going to be an awesome celebration to kind of cap off a great week together.